I see you as the ambassador for bringing football on a much bigger level to Europe.
During the day, I would see my patients, and in the evening, of course, I'd go and play a football game with the Miami Dolphins.
Wow. Now, Alex, you've been in a medical school. Now you're in business school. Do you think you'll practice medicine again?
Yeah, I was thinking that I might not ever be able to do surgery again. And I also thought I might never be able to throw a football again.
Alexander Thury, hi. Thank you for joining me on the third episode of MBA Odyssey.
Hi, I'm excited that you invite me to this opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely. Man, it's great. You're one of the coolest people I've met since starting the business school here at Stanford. I'd love to have you here. Actually, one of the reasons that I've started this podcast, I'm saying it also for the audience, is from the day one that I was here, also the trips that we took before coming to Stanford, when I talk to people, I felt like they have portrayed a lot of excellence on a lot of aspects of their lives. It's not just studies, it's not just academics. They have showed excellence, leadership, and quality on multiple aspects of their lives. And talking to you, I was like, Jesus, this is like blown out of proportion. Like the levels and the spheres of life that you have shown your excellence in are unbelievable. That's why I think you're one of the best fitting guests for this podcast. And I'm really happy to have met you.
That's great to hear that. I think you're right. There's a lot of great people at Stanford, a lot of amazing accomplishments when you think about our classmates. There's a few rotten apples, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, but they can't get them all right.
Exactly, they cannot. I wonder every day, like, why? How do they fall through this process? But Alex, let's start. Every Odyssey starts, obviously, at home. Tell me a little bit more. Like, where are you from? What is your background?
Yeah, I'm from Austria, from Vienna, the capital of Austria, which is a beautiful city. It's one of the most highly ranked cities in the world almost every year. So I was really blessed to be born there and grow up there.
And you lived all your life, like your schooling, your university, all that in Vienna mostly.
Yeah. So I went to high school in Vienna, did an exchange semester in Iowa when I was 15.
Wow.
Out of all states in the U.S.,
yes.
Which was awesome. I loved Iowa. I was 15.
Like a family exchange program almost.
It was like a 6-month program through an organization.
Okay.
And that sort of paved my way in a way, or primed my thoughts to wanting to come back to the US at some point.
Yes.
And that didn't happen for a long time after that. But
yes.
So I went to school in Austria, then went to med school in Vienna as well. And during my time at med school, I also played American football at a high level in Europe and played in Germany and in Stockholm, in Sweden, and of course in Austria as well. So those were sort of my outside of Austria experiences, if you will. But for the most part, it was just Vienna and Austria for me.
So when you sent me your CV to prep for this interview, I just looked at it. I was like, Jesus, like, where are we going to start on this? You're a medical doctor. So you got a formal training on that. And then you also played professional American football, which is also something very niche and kind of untapped in Europe, if you will, compared to here. But let's dissect them one by one. Becoming a medical doctor, like, when did that happen? Like, how did that happen?
Kind of funny. I looked back at some of my essays that I wrote when I was like 12, 13, a while back when I was moving. And there was one in particular that stood out to me that already had a vision of me in my late 20s being a doctor and an American football player living in Miami. And sort of during the day, I would see my patients, and in the evening, of course, I'd go and play a football game with the Miami Dolphins.
Wow.
So I don't know where it came from, but it was something that was in my brain for quite a long time, I guess.
So I think you have the whole picture except for the Miami part. Have you been to Miami?
And also, I wasn't a surgery doctor, not a surgeon, but rather a dentist in that essay, which I now would never ever do in my life. But,
okay.
It was close enough, you know. It was an idea in my head for some reason. And in terms of the medical doctor thing, I think a big influence was my uncle. He was a physician, and I always admired him and sort of how he structured his life, not only in a professional setting, but also like his family and how he behaves. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of be more like him in many ways.
So it was like around like 15, 16, you kind of made up your mind that you want to go into medical school, and then you were set on it completely.
Yeah, so here's where sort of the second part played a role. I wanted to be a football player as well, right? American football player. And after coming back from Iowa from the exchange semester when I was like pretty young still and not fully developed in terms of physical ability, I kind of wanted to play college football in the US. And I was pursuing that path for a little while, at least mentally. And then I did apply to med school in Vienna. And once I got accepted, that kind of put a lid on my plans to go to the US for undergrad and play college football. My parents also played a factor there. They kind of pointed out to me, hey, you have this amazing opportunity. Only a few people every year get to do this in Vienna, and it's a fully paid education.
Of course.
Why wouldn't you take it? And that kind of made me think. And at the same time, I kind of started to accelerate in my football career as well in Vienna. And so I didn't want to leave that opportunity.
So you thought, why not do both? Yeah.
I kind of built my own college football experience in Europe, in my hometown, Vienna.
Wow.
So.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit more, like, how is the American football scene in Europe?
So when I started out, there was not much going on. And I got in touch with it through like sort of Super Bowl commercials and Super Bowl party. And a friend of mine in high school, or actually middle school, he had just moved from LA to Vienna, and he was a big football fan, and he wanted to play football. And so I was kind of like trying to figure out where to play football. And my neighbor at the time also played American football. So a lot of funny coincidences that led me to find this club in Vienna called the Vienna Vikings.
Yes.
And I started playing there. And when I began, it was pretty much unprofessional. They had just a bunch of Austrian dudes coming there after work playing. And they had a few Americans who kind of were the only paid athletes at the time. And they played football throughout Austria and Europe. And over the years, so I started at age 11, over the years that developed pretty rapidly into a professional setting with like proper facilities.
Yes,
and a lot of things that happened to make it more professional.
Okay.
And right now we're at a stage where there's a professional league across Europe called the European League of Football. And it has a growing audience, a lot of media presence, and it's starting to become a thing.
I can imagine. So I wanted to initially maybe talk about the streams of your life separately, so the medical school and the football, but I feel like they're so intertwined that
it's really hard to separate them. Yeah.
That's why I want to just jump back and forth between the two, and then get a little bit of that, get a little bit of this other one, because they have apparently excelled in tandem in your life. In medical school, what did you focus on? Like, what was your specialization? Like, how did those years go about? And then how were you balancing that with football?
So in terms of medical specialty, I was always focused on surgical field, plastic surgery initially, and then sort of more trauma, orthopedic surgery, and very much focused also on hand surgery. But initially, I wasn't too set on any particular specialty. I was just trying to get a overview of medicine and get a good medical education in general. So that probably only happened in the last 2 years of med school. It's a little different system. It's 6 to 7 years versus 4 years of pre-med and 4 years of med school in the US. So it's a little different, but I really honed in on sort of where I wanted to go professionally in the last 2 years. And before that, it was just a general medical education. And you mentioned, or you asked about the balance between football and the medical education. I think for me, football was the balance I needed. I don't think I could have gone through 6 or 7 years of med school without that thing
relief,
to release
yeah?
some of the tension and
Exactly.
pressure. And yeah, to me, it was something that definitely propelled me and helped me also on the academic side, I would say.
I can imagine. Was it like very, assuming it was very time consuming for you, wasn't it? How were you like, what was your day looking like typically?
So a typical day would be university during the day, and then a football team session in the evening, usually starting around 8. And on only 3 days of the week would have team training sessions, and so on the other days I would try to make my way into the gym and work on sort of my fitness overall. So it was probably sports, I would say 5 or 6 days of the week,
Seriously?
and med school 5 days of the week, and then on the weekends there was games happening
The games
for
were
about
happening.
half the year, right?
And you had to travel across Europe for these games often?
Not often. So mostly stayed within the Austrian
Okay.
league, but there's probably like 3 games or 4 games that were international per year, sometimes even less.
And by that, I'm assuming you also joined the Austrian national team.
Yeah, so I joined the Austrian national team in 2014. I think I was 18 or 19 years old at the time, and then started out as a backup quarterback there, but got to experience a European championship in Vienna in front of 30,000 people, sort of from the sidelines as a bench warmer.
Yes.
And at the end of the whole thing, we got handed the silver medal in an overtime loss to Germany, which was double the pain.
Wow. Yes.
Losing to the big brother sort of thing. And then that really sparked something in me.
Yes.
To, one day be on the field as the starting quarterback and finishing the mission, so to speak.
And that happened.
And that happened, yeah. It happened in 2023.
You became the starting quarterback. You played full time on the team, and you guys took home the trophy, yeah?
Yeah. Long story short, that's what it was. Yeah.
And that was right before you almost came to GSB.
Exactly. Yes.
That's awesome. Did you like how long did you practice medicine after med school?
I started in trauma surgery in 2020. Right when I graduated was sort of the pandemic was dominating the news and also everyone's lives. And pretty much the day I graduated from med school, I had the idea with my best friend from med school at the time to do something in the COVID space. And initially, we just wanted to celebrate our graduation together. And we're trying to find testing solutions so we could test all of our guests for the party, and just have a graduation party. And that flipped into a startup idea. And we founded a COVID testing startup together with my best friend's brother and also our president from our football club. So 4 of us. And then...
So if that is not the most Stanford story, I don't know what it is. What is? I'm just going to give you a bit of context. Sorry to cut you off here. First interview, I had it with Shubhankar. It's already live. And I was talking to him and he was like, yeah, in college in India, my friend and I wanted to test something, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward a few months, it led to an accidental startup, which was very successful and all that stuff. And you said the same thing. You were like, yeah, we were trying to get tests for people to come to my party, and it led to an accidental startup. Yeah, somehow I told him as well. I think 20% of our class are accidental entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah. And the party never happened. To this day.
Seriously.
It never happened.
Who tested positive? Someone?
No, we didn't test our guests. Like we just discarded the party and went into the startup building.
Yeah, better, yeah.
But that sort of put a stop on my clinical career. I only worked in a hospital for 5 months. And once the startup took off, I quit my job in the hospital and focused on the startup full time. Which was in early 2021, and then operated that startup for 2.5 years, pretty much to the end of the pandemic, grew to over 250 employees, and that was, quite a ride.
Jeez, and you were running test centers across Austria, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so we started out with antigen testing with about 10 test centers, and then pretty early on, actually, started a COVID testing lab, a PCR lab, and we're able to streamline workflows and optimize for a test to results time of 2 hours, which was unique in Austria pretty much to the end of the pandemic. And that gave us sort of the USP to keep operating even when the demand for tests wasn't as high anymore. We're still able to get a pretty good amount.
You run a startup. You do not have any formal business education, optimization education, any of that stuff. Like, did it just come to you naturally, or was your partner also, or did he have any sort of education in business? Like, what did you think about that?
So none of us had any formal business training. But my friend Manuel, he actually had a little bit of an entrepreneurial background. He had an e-commerce business. He was selling stuff on Amazon. And before that, he was also involved with event management for festivals a little bit. And so he kind of took me under his wing initially a little bit. And yeah, he was kind of the one who was like, don't be afraid to do this. We got this. We'll just have to try things out and sort of learning by doing on how to manage an organization of this size will be fine.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But Alex, I'm assuming I have a few friends who have been to the medical school, are doctors now, some surgeons and all that. And I talk to them a lot about their profession. One of the things that they keep telling me is that obviously surgeons have steady hands, very steady hands. And it's very important to have that kind of a good mind-muscle connection and coordination when you're a surgeon, especially when you're operating on like very delicate parts of the body. Almost all of the body is pretty delicate. Did that? Do you think a career in football, which is like high impact, and you get hit, you throw things, your muscles grow bigger and all that stuff, would that have an impact on the abilities of a surgeon to execute those kind of delicate movements, or does it help actually?
That's a very good question. I haven't given much thought on how my football experience or career has influenced my surgical ability too much. But to the point that you made about surgery being delicate, I don't know if you've been to a trauma surgery before. So there's things that are not as delicate as you would think.
Okay. I can imagine.
But yeah, there's definitely some fields where you do need a very steady hand, and the way that I see it is in sports or in American football, and especially as a quarterback, you are practicing a skill, a physical skill, day in, day out, and you get better over time, and that is also very applicable to surgery, I think.
I can imagine. Now, moving a little bit closer to the GSB and your application, I think I recorded a very short snippet of a video with you like a couple of weeks ago, and there you mentioned that you had one other application to GSB which was not successful, and then you applied in a couple of years after that, and then you were successful. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure.
When was your first application? What were the circumstances around it? What do you think were the success factors, or what were the things that were missing, and then how did that change to your second application in that time period? What things did you improve? Because I think a huge part of the audience would be very much interested in that, and also I'll then follow up with some more questions as a reapplicant.
So the pandemic was sort of coming to an end in early 2023, I believe, and I was debating internally whether I wanted to go back to a clinical job in a hospital setting, or whether I wanted to explore a different path. And I was very torn, but I did have a feeling that if I wanted to continue on the entrepreneurial track, that I did want to add some formal education. There's a pivotal moment in sort of February, March of 2023, when I was kind of thinking about just taking a break, and I wanted to go back to American football. And there was a European Championship in 2023, and we still hadn't won that gold medal yet. So that was on my mind, and I was kind of, I didn't have a plan. And I started to go back into training for American football. And one of the first training sessions I had, I threw a pass, and I just hammered my thumb against the helmet of a defender, and I shattered my thumb into like 4 pieces. And at that point, I was at an emotional low point in my life. I was not, I was thinking that I might not ever be able to do surgery again, perform surgery. And I also thought I might never be able to throw a football again. And it came down really, really heavy on me. So I remember that day so vividly. I hit my hand on that helmet, and I just knew it was really, really bad. And I went to the hospital that night, got an X-ray. There was a colleague of a friend or a colleague of mine who looked at it, and he was like, all right, I don't know what to do with this. We need a hand surgeon. We need an expert on this. I'm sorry to tell this to you, Alex, but this does not look good. And I cried a lot for about a week until I found a hand surgeon where I felt comfortable of going through with the surgery there. And surgery went well. And at that point, still, I wasn't sure whether I'd ever be able to throw a ball again or do anything with my right thumb anymore again. And in that sort of week after the first surgery, I decided I wanted to go to business school. I wanted to hedge against the possibility of not being able to be a surgeon anymore, and applied to Stanford in round 3 in April, I think it was. So quickly did the GMAT and applied. And
what is quickly? Out. What is quickly?
So from March to April, so like within a month.
And can you remind me of the score you got the first time?
710, I think.
Okay, 710. Yeah. And then third round.
Didn't work out. I got waitlisted, and then.
And you were going through rehab also at the same time.
I was having ergotherapy every day, and physical therapy, all of that. So I was waitlisted initially. So until August, I didn't know whether I would get in or not, right? And during that time frame, my recovery went much better than expected. It did require 2 more surgeries, but it all worked out pretty well. And I was actually able to start throwing a football again by like May or something like that, which was completely crazy. I still didn't know whether I was going to be able to do sort of the fine motoric things and surgery, but I was able to grip a ball, not like really grip it, but kind of like press it into my palm. Like I wasn't able to spread my thumb out, but I could like press the ball in and then throw, and it worked. That just lifted up my spirits so much. I just got really hooked on football again and went all in, knowing that there was going to be a European championship in September of 2023.
And business school came back to you and they said no, or?
So it was in August, business school came back, and at that time I was a little bit relieved, honestly, because I wanted to play that European championship final. That was still on my bucket list, and it was above business school at that point still. And so I got dinged, but I instantly reapplied in round 1 in September, and then just went and played American football.
Waited for the results, yeah?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so you improved your GMAT, I'm assuming, yeah?
I did a little bit.
You improved your GMAT, and you applied round 1. Let's hone in a little bit on the application. What do you think changed significantly that then caused you or changed the mind of the school so you got the admission?
It's really hard to tell. I I don't know, honestly, what they liked about me and what they didn't. But I think on a general level, you can say that round 3, there's way less spots available.
Yeah.
And just in general, if you get interviewed, that's a very good sign.
Yes.
And then if you get interviewed and waitlisted, that's an even better sign.
Yes.
And I felt like I did not do as well as I could have on that application, just because my time frame initially was very brief, and I made a quick decision, and I had to follow through with all of the stuff like GMAT, TOEFL, and you know it.
Yes.
And it was all happening in a very short time frame, so I knew I had a little room for improvement, and I wanted to see where it takes me.
Man, that's fantastic, and you did it. So, do you remember if by the time you were playing the championship, you had the offer or not?
No.
The championship was in September.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had barely applied.
I had barely applied again.
Yeah.
And then I think it was in early December or something like that.
Of course. So a lot of good news coming in. Yeah, that's fantastic. What kind of would you reflect a little bit on your journey? Yeah, childhood. You grew up in Vienna. You already make a bold decision to go for an exchange program. I've been in Europe. I know a lot of European friends have done that, but I still know that that's not very common. We would be one of the few cases around you that might have done that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you go to medical school, very difficult to get in, football, so on and so forth. What do you think were the defining moments in your life in terms of character building?
I think just playing football from a very early stage on really built out my competitive spirit, but at the same time, sort of the teamwork and team mentality aspect. So I think that is sort of not one moment, but that is sort of a transition over time that really moved me to like a competitive person and teamwork, team mentality type of person as well. And the second thing I would say is sort of losing that European Championship in 2014, sort of not making it to college football in the US, not making it to Stanford the first time. And yeah.
I can imagine.
I think breaking my thumb was sort of like the final moment of failure, if you will. Everything I had worked for up until that point seemed like I was losing it. And then...
But that getting back up, like going at it again, getting back to rehab, submitting another application, not US, playing it in Europe. So those moments of getting back up, I think, are very, very important. And it's been a theme across many of the people that I've met here.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of failures that I haven't even brought up, but there's so many. We could talk a whole night about failures in my life. But yeah, like you said, I think getting up and trying to move on, which is very hard, is sort of the key in all of this. It's very hard to get things right the first time around.
I can imagine. Imagine. Alex, which other schools did you apply to?
None.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You had your eyes on Stanford from day one.
Yeah.
When did you kind of, like, I'm assuming when you were 15 and you were here, you had heard of the school, maybe? Like how did you even get to know about Stanford, and then what happened? Because I'm sure you were pretty busy with the medical school, football. Who thinks about like business schools in the US? Like, how did it come about for you?
I don't know what it was, but one of the aspects to it was one of my colleagues on the Austrian football national team, he went to Stanford for undergrad as a football player and as a student. And that kind of put Stanford on my radar for the first time a while back.
I can imagine.
And it was just something that was ingrained in my brain in a way. And then you read about all these great entrepreneurs coming out of Stanford. You read about all the amazing scientific achievements that are happening here, the research that's going on. And then you, of course, hear about California and the nice weather and the sunshine. And yeah, a lot of things coming together. But at the end of the day, to be honest with you, it was just that I had such a short time frame to apply. Not many universities have even a round 3 application. And I did that. It kind of worked out. In my head, it did. Like I was like on the wait list, which was a great achievement for me. And then I just got dinged in August
Yes.
and round one's already in September. So that time frame wasn't too long either.
Yes.
Like I didn't have time to rewrite 3 essays or like for 4 more schools, or at least I wasn't willing to make that that sacrifice at the time. I was focused on football, and so I only sort of brushed up my initial application for Stanford a little bit, and that was it. And so again, a short time frame.
Yes.
And my plan was, if I was not going to get in round 1, I would still have round 2 for other schools to apply to in January.
Yes, I can imagine. That's a very thoughtful strategy. And as you say, getting waitlisted in round 3 is almost getting in. Like, it's so difficult to even get interviewed in round 3, as you said, and getting waitlisted is almost like getting in, like a shy of getting in. So I think that you had a very good strategy there. But when you think about your application to Stanford, I'm sure you did a lot of reflecting and thinking about the past and what you want to do, what you have done. Like, how did you tie these together? Like, what did you think was the common theme or the common thread throughout your life, from maybe the age 14 until the age maybe 28, 29 when you applied? Am I correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What was this common thread?
Yeah, you connect the dots in hindsight. Yeah, you don't know really as you're going
along. Yeah, but now that you look at it.
But now that I look at it, so I think there's always a problem-solving aspect and like intellectual engagement that I was really drawn to. Also on the football field, I wasn't the most athletic, but I was trying to read defenses, and I was trying to have a say in game planning and calling plays and auditing plays at the line of scrimmage. So even in sports, that was sort of something that I was drawn to. Then applying to med school, it's sort of like a logic test combined with some logic and some knowledge from school in biology, chemistry, physics, and math. But also sort of the application process there is kind of like problem solving. And then in like entrepreneurship, you solve problems every day.
Yes.
On a constant basis. So I was always drawn to sort of the problem-solving aspect of things, and not as much as in the operational day-to-day.
Yes.
I wanted to tackle challenging problems and then move on sort of to the next problem.
Yes.
And then engage intellectually with things that need fixing.
Yes. If you want to talk about some tips for people who want to apply to top business schools, like, and especially I think it should be around polishing up their stories and the character that they bring to the school, what would be the tips that you might have, like 1 or 2?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a truth or general wisdom to this, but I think it is what most people say it is. It's just bring yourself the way you are, be authentic, and then when you actually take a look at the essays that Stanford requires you to write, what matters most to you and why, give yourself the time to really think about that and have clarity about what you bring to the table and what matters to you. And regardless of whether you get in or not, that's something that's going to be very worth your time.
I can imagine. It was very reflective for me, this whole process. What is your take on admissions consultant? I mean, you've applied only to one school, so I think you might have a kind of a limited sample set to maybe infer from, but did you ever consider them or not?
Admissions consultants?
Yes.
No, I didn't. I didn't really research much on that, so I can't speak to that. But I think no matter whether you have someone who helps you structure kind of the process for you or do it on your own, at the end of the day, you have to put in time. I think especially for these tests, these standardized tests, there's a clear level of evidence that the more time you put in, the better your result will be. And also for reflecting too, I think the more time you put into that, the clearer and crisper your story will come out.
Yes. Let's speak a little bit about your hometown, Vienna, or Wien, as you guys say. I do a lot of photography, and for that reason, Vienna is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Mhm.
I've traveled to Vienna maybe 2 or 3 times, every time to visit my friend Florian, which he's also on a path to a very great career, perhaps in public service around diplomacy. So let's see what he does. So I'm very much excited about his career. But yeah, so Vienna. Except for being picturesque, Vienna is famous for its coffee culture or the cafe culture. And I know that the cafe culture in Vienna is like a UNESCO World Heritage. It's very elaborate. It's very famous and whatnot. Do you have a favorite cafe?
I'm not much of a coffee guy. You're not going to have fun with that question.
Do you have a favorite bar for some good beer?
Oh, yeah, many. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. I'll happy to take this offline and give you some insights on where you want to go.
That'd be very interesting. Let's settle this debate. Which country has the best schnitzel?
Oh, is that a debate? I don't know.
I mean, ask Germans.
Who says that there's a debate?
Ask our German friends.
They agree. I'm sure.
So Wiener Schnitzel, yeah?
Wiener Schnitzel.
And which one? Turkey?
No,
pork,
no, it's
veal.
Veal. It has to be
veal. It has
Wiener
to be
Schnitzel
veal.
is veal. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. One of the best places that I've had the Wiener Schnitzel, it's maybe a little bit of a touristy one, but I think still the quality is very good, was I think Fickmuller.
Close, but yeah. You pronounce it in a very
Can you say it?
Figelmüller.
Again?
Figelmüller.
Figelmüller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ficht is something else.
Okay. I'm sorry. I hope it's not offensive. It is? I'm so sorry. I've had them like twice or 3 times at different branches. I think they have multiple branches across Vienna. And always Wiener Schnitzel, veal, with different types of potatoes. That's also another debate. What is the favorite or the right type of potato next to schnitzel?
I think for the side dish, there's no like one best thing. That's really up to
what do you prefer?
Character and personality.
What is yours?
I actually like potato salad with it, and
a potato salad. Yeah, I can imagine. So yeah, that's one of my absolute favorite dishes, and also I can tell you there was a lot of street food in Vienna, which is pretty famous as well, and the horse meat I've had there. Those like brioche or buns, that was also pretty good.
Pferdeleberkäse, I'm assuming. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Whatever that is. That's pretty interesting that you say that. Now, Alex, you've been in a medical school. Now you're in business school. Europe, US. What are the major differences that you feel like you see here? Like, how is Stanford different for you?
Oh, it's so different. You can't even compare those two. Just from the lens of also just the system behind it, right? One's public. Over here, you pay a lot of money. So there's just a different level of funding that enables different things. And then I would say in a classroom setting, here, the biggest benefit I get is actually from the discussions that happen with classmates during class, but also outside. And at med school, that's not really much of a thing. You would just be lectured on a certain topic, and there's not much debate or discussion going on. And I think that's sort of the nature of medicine versus business.
Yes, I can imagine. So would you say that's the same then in Stanford Med School as well then?
I don't know. I can't speak to Stanford Med School, but I think there are some similarities for sure. Yeah.
I can imagine. Alex, you are now here at business school, admittedly one of the best in the world, if not the best. If you ask me, I would say the best. What is next? What are you thinking about? I know you always love to be in sports, do things in and around sports. We've talked about that a little bit. I see you as the ambassador for bringing football on a much bigger level to Europe. That's what I see, but it doesn't mean that you see that. What is next? What do you think? Like short-term, long-term vision, if you want to share it with us.
Yeah, so coming into Stanford, I had a clear vision of where I wanted to go afterwards, which is become a founder again in the healthcare space, leverage my background in entrepreneurship, in medicine, and then bring sort of the Stanford business experience together with that, move forward with the next idea. Coming here, there's so many shiny things that are being swung right in front of your face, and you're going, "Oh, I want this, I want that, I want this." But I think long term, that would still be where I see myself go. In a shorter time frame, like summer internship, and then 2 to 3 years out of business school, I can see myself in different paths going forward as well. It could be consulting, which is sort of speaking towards or speaks to like my interest in problem solving,
Yes.
and also being able to leverage my background in medicine. Then another hypothesis would be to sort of lean into more of the VC startup space. Just before coming here, I had the opportunity to join an amazing health tech fund in Vienna. And that was really cool as well. So that'd be one hypothesis. And then the last one is kind of like the crazy one, which is to leverage my American football background and network towards the NFL and like international market expansion team, something like that.
That's what I like.
Yeah, we spoke about this beforehand. So yeah, I think that's sort of where the only downside would be that I'm kind of giving up on my medical background a little bit, and I'm not super excited to do that. I kind of want to stay in the healthcare space. I'm passionate about that, and I want to solve problems there.
Make complete sense. This might be a bit of a difficult question. If it is, I don't know, but it might be. Do you think you'll practice medicine again in the capacity that you were practicing?
I don't think so. No. I think I had this moment with the injury of my thumb where I kind of just went with the worst case scenario of not being able to do it. And at the end of it, I was kind of fine with that. And I think that says a lot about, the way I want to have an impact. And the impact is only scalable to a degree when you're working in a hospital setting. But in an entrepreneurial setting or outside of that as an investor or a consultant, you can scale that impact pretty massively.
I can imagine. This is great. I want to ask this maybe last question to you. What is it that you're most excited about here at Stanford? Be it the courses, things that you haven't experienced yet, things that you're looking forward to. What is it?
So there was sort of 2 events up to this day where I was like, wow, this is amazing. And both of them were sort of speaker events. One of them being Graham Weaver, yes, and the other Rolf Botha from Sequoia Capital. But especially the Graham Weaver one. I don't know if you attended this one, but
I have.
Sort of the beginning of the workshop or talk was about your peak experience. And he asked us to reflect on a time when we were sort of at our peak, our best selves, where we felt we were unstoppable and where we could achieve anything we wanted to. And for me, that peak experience was in sports, in American football, in the 2023 European Championship final, when I was walking out the tunnel, locked in with the team captain's arms, like a team that felt unstoppable. I had so much confidence, although my heart was pounding like crazy. And it gives me goosebumps talking about this, but I felt like it was an actual peak. It was a mountain that I had been climbing for many, many years, from 2014 onwards, when I was sort of on the sidelines and then had a silver medal at the end in my hand. And I had put in a lot of things, a lot of work, and put aside a lot of things to reach to that.
I can imagine.
To reach that moment. And that feeling of like walking out there onto the field and feeling unstoppable, like I knew no team in the world was going to stop us that day. And that's probably not true, not an NFL team probably would have easily, but it felt really, really powerful. And coming back to the question of what I'm excited about is to sort of find something like that experience and that mountain to climb going forward is
The
what excites me the
exhilaration,
most.
the anticipation.
Yes, sort of the journey to this moment of peak experience.
Is what you're excited about.
Yeah, I'm excited about finding that next mountain.
We all are, buddy. We all are. I want to ask you one more question, if you don't mind. I like when I was looking through your Instagram when we were connected, I saw that you have these. There was a footage of you with a teammate of yours or another athlete in a kind of a palace setting, or you guys are throwing the balls, and I feel like this ball might like hit these expensive vases, and you guys could break stuff. What is the story behind that? Tell me.
Yeah, so that was my fellow team captain of the national team, Philip Hahn, my wide receiver, who scored 3 touchdowns in that championship game. And we were invited as a team Austria, to visit the president in his office.
Yes.
Sort of like the Super Bowl winning team also gets to visit the U.S. president.
Yes.
They kind of made a PR gag out of that. And
yes.
then we were excited, of course. And then at the end of the event, like, we shook hands and we had like an exchange with the president. It was fun. It was great. And seeing his office was amazing. The media team there asked us to throw the ball around with like the chandeliers around us,
yes.
like the golden things. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I bet the president was not around when
the president had already left, and then we started just tossing the pigskin. So that was fantastic. Yeah.
I can imagine. Alex, this was fantastic. I know we had talked a lot throughout these past few months, but I still got to learn a lot more about your journey, about your Odyssey. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or touch upon or mention that you didn't get the chance to do that?
Honestly, I just want to say Stanford, the GSB, and the people at the GSB are amazing. And so for anyone thinking about applying, I strongly recommend that you do. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through LinkedIn. I'm happy to hop on a call with you and talk more about anything that's on your mind, and especially in terms of Stanford and GSB. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat with you. You
heard it from the man. We would probably then put a link to his LinkedIn in the comment section down below, and then you can get connected with the legend himself, Alex. Alex, thank you a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your Odyssey is fantastic. It started as a young boy in Vienna, Austria. You're here now. Let's see where it continues and how it goes forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.